Hello and welcome to another What If discussion. Today we're going to be going over what if Tien, or Tenshinhan, however you like to say it, what if Tenshinhan actually survived the fight against Nappa? But before we go on with the video, I do want to introduce my guest, and please everyone, before we move on, go over to the description section right now, click that link, go over to Geargiaa TV and hit sub. He makes awesome content. Great Dragon Ball discussions on episodes, things I haven't covered before, and a lot of other stuff. But with all that said, how are you doing, Geargiaa TV?
I'm doing really good, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this What If because, as everyone should know, I'm a big Tien fan, so I would love to discuss anything pertaining to him.
Yep, and thanks for coming on. This is the first time on the channel, so I'm looking forward to hearing what you'll have to offer in this discussion. So I want to pitch something to you, Geargiaa. So instead of whenever Nappa went over to punch Tenshinhan's arm off, what if instead he knocked out Tenshinhan, which would make it to where he couldn't sacrifice his life against Nappa? So I would say that this would play out like we go through the whole Saiyan arc. I would probably say maybe during like the 3-hour time wait, I would say maybe Gohan or Krillin would take Tenshinhan back over to Kame House, but maybe even whenever Goku arrives. So let's say Tenshinhan survives all of this arc right here. He doesn't sacrifice his life against Nappa to avenge Chaozu, but instead lives around to hear that he can revive Chaozu by going over to Namek. So what are your first thoughts on this, Geargiaa?
My first thoughts are very interesting because I do think that definitely if it wasn't for the knockout, he would have sacrificed himself like he did in the anime. Like, regardless of losing the arm or not, he would have used that, that final desperation shot, taking all his life force to take out Nappa. And it was mentioned by Vegeta that it would have killed Nappa if he didn't dodge it, right? But this time he's knocked out and he can't really do anything. But I do think the moment that he finds out he can revive Chaozu, he will drop anything that he had planned and definitely head for Namek straight away because, Tien loves Chaozu.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember we were actually talking before we did this what if scenario about you saying that he might actually go up with Goku. And I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that and why is that?
See, I could see it both ways because you did counter that, it would be slowing Goku down. But before, when they went to fight the Saibamen or whatever, I think Tien was the strongest of the Z fighters that were present. Maybe he wasn't beating Yamcha by much, but Yamcha and I do want to say Tien was slightly stronger than Yamcha, but it can be argued that they were pretty similar power levels at the time. It's just that Yamcha did get caught off guard and, blown up by the Saibamen or whatever. And being the second strongest Z fighter, well, third besides Piccolo, the Z fighter at the time, I do think that he would have wanted to train with Goku on the way to Namek, but I do see how it would have slowed down Goku too much, and I think he would have ended up just going with Krillin as being like the strongest one of that little group and protecting them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, especially whenever you consider that Tenshinhan doesn't exactly have Zenkais like how Goku did.
Yeah.
So it's not like he could actually keep up with Goku just by damaging his body beyond belief and then healing up, and then damaging his body beyond belief and healing up.
Right, but he would get accustomed to the gravity though, if that make like how they did in King Kai's and the little filler. Like he wouldn't be getting Zenkai boosts per se, but he would be accustoming his body to higher gravity levels, which like when you go to the gym, right, you do, a bench press. And maybe at first you can't do it once. You don't get a Zenkai boost, but little by little you're getting your body accustomed to the weight. So technically you do get stronger over time, even though it's not a direct Zenkai boost. I do think that it still would have benefited him, but he would have been way slower than Goku. So Goku wouldn't have been as strong when he got to Namek.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with that, because Goku bumped himself way up to 30 times gravity as soon as he got on the ship. But I would say, moving on to when Krillin, Gohan, and Tenshinhan get to Namek, because I do think that Gohan would go to Namek still, because he made the strong case that he was going up there because he wanted to avenge Piccolo. So I think with 3 heads there might be a lot of different changes on Namek. So what do you see changing the first thing on Namek, especially with Zarbon and Dodoria and Kui right there? What do you think?
So I do think as soon as they arrive to Namek, it would play out a bit differently, whereas Gohan and Krillin would just go out and scout Namek and leave Bulma alone and behind. I do think Tien would team up with Krillin and leave Gohan with Bulma, which is not a lot because Gohan wasn't very strong at the time, but it does leave Bulma not alone and with someone there to protect her, maybe against a low-class Frieza warrior. And then I do think almost everything else would play out very evenly because Krillin wasn't able to do much and he was just way outclassed by Zarbon and Dory at the time. So I don't think even a Krillin and a Tien would have done much, to be honest. But I do think it would play out a bit differently, but not too differently, if that makes sense. I really don't think, even adding Tien and Krillin just doesn't make enough of a difference at the time with the big-ass gaps in power level.
It definitely doesn't, but there's also a very important thing. Because if Krillin and Tenshinhan are the ones scouting the planet, and they actually run into that village where they were killing Dende and all those other people, there'd be nobody there to actually go and step in and save Dende because Gohan was kind of impulsive at that time. So I think that Dende would not be a factor anymore if Krillin and Tenshinhan were the ones scouting. And the thing is, it might very well be the case because, take into account, do I want two adults going over and scouting a planet full of dangerous guys, or a kid who's strong as well, but not as experienced? So I do agree with you that Gohan would be left behind with Bulma.
And I do agree with you that then they would definitely not have been alive, most likely, because they had just killed his brother. And then, yeah, they would have definitely killed Dende right after, honestly.
Yep, but that does leave. What do you think would happen whenever Tien or Tenshinhan were to go over and unlock his latent power by the Elder, or Guru?
After getting his potential unlocked, I actually don't see him making much of a difference in the Ginyu fight because Rikum and Guldo just straight up bodied them, and it took Goku coming back and bodying them back for it to make a difference. And since Tien was slightly stronger than Krillin, but with the potential lock, he's still just slightly stronger than Krillin. I really don't see him making much of a difference in the fight, sadly. I really wish he would, but I really doubt that he would have made a big difference because the Ginyu Force was an even higher tier of power compared to them, even after potential unlocked.
I agree. I basically see all the Ginyus as kind of like another, like, Nappa in a way. Like, basically of how much he was outmatching Krillin and all them.
Yeah, they would have definitely tried like they did in the regular Dragon Ball Z, but they still would have gotten their asses handed to them. Just Tien too.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if Tien were to get his power unlocked even further, kind of like how in those guidebooks where Krillin is around like 75,000 during the Frieza fight, maybe he would actually stand a chance against the Ginyu Force in that context.
Yeah, but they just didn't really have much time with the Ginyu Force landing so close to their potential and being unlocked.
That's true. And then whenever we move on to the fight with Frieza, I mean, the whole thing is, too, there are a lot of instances where Tenshinhan could have gotten killed off at this point, or Krillin, but I also think that it would have been kind of unlikely for him at this point, because one of the things is that I think that Tenshinhan sacrificing his life to avenge Chaozu was a lot more powerful than what he could have done in any point in the future, sacrificing his life against Frieza or one of his henchmen.
Maybe we do see Frieza killing off both Krillin and Tien at the same time because, although Goku's bond with Krillin was a lot closer than Goku's bond with Tien, he has known Tien for a very long time. He fought him twice in the end of 2 martial arts tournaments, and seeing two of his closer friends die, maybe would have triggered, I don't know, a stronger Super Saiyan, him maybe obliterate Frieza a little bit harder, I don't know. But maybe, I don't know, I just think him dying there doesn't really make a lot of sense like you're saying, but him dying could also, just add more fuel to the fire. But I don't see him getting killed by Frieza, honestly. And there's also Krillin's second time dying, and he sees it right in front of his face.
Exactly. And also, and with Tien also unlocking his power, I think at that point we could honestly say the debate between who's stronger between Krillin and Tien is over at that point. But that's up for debate too.
Yeah, of course. There's so many things that, can go either way in this series, and I think that's one of the bigger ones has always been Krillin versus Tien. Because earlier on in the series, I do agree with you where, that unlocking of power does make Krillin a bigger step ahead of Tien. But then later on, when Krillin stops training for so long and Tien just non-stop trains in that same gap, you have to figure that into account too.
Yeah, I do agree. Is there anything else you wanted to add to the conversation before we end the video for today, Gear?
And then I do think when they finally go ahead and revive Chaozu, it would just be a lot more powerful. as Tien being alive and seeing Chaozu being revived, whereas they were both revived more or less at the same time. It would be a more powerful message to the audience, if that makes sense. Like it would have been more impactful to see, Tien working his ass off for an entire saga, helping Krillin and the gang get back the Dragon Balls, and then finally seeing actually Chaozu come back. It would have just been like, another tearjerker moment, like the Chaozu suicide was supposed to be.
Gosh, that's so true. I hadn't even thought of that. That would really be a powerful moment. Probably as powerful as, maybe even more than him actually sacrificing his life.
I do think it would have been more.
Yeah, I mean, just knowing that he worked all that arc to revive his friend. Kind of like how Gohan did, basically to revive his stepdad in a way.
His actual father.
Yeah, basically. But anything else, man?
No, man, that's it. Thank you so much for having me. It was honestly a pleasure being on this channel, and a great discussion, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I enjoyed it as well. But guys, make sure you comment in the comment section below what you thought of our discussion. After all, half of the fun of these What If discussions is seeing the comment section and what other people come up with. But with that being said, make sure you go to the description section below right now and subscribe to Geargiaa TV. I'll link his channel in the description below and on the screen. And until next time, thank you for watching this discussion, everyone, and have a great day.
Peace out, guys.